Welcome to the Explainer. If you can, go ahead and lower the lights and lean in for just a second. Today we're exploring something that sits right at the very edge of our comfort zone. See, we spend so much time worrying about the supernatural, the imaginary stuff, the monsters under the bed. But what actually happens when we strip all of that away? Today we're diving into 3 true documented events that all share one undeniable, chilling theme. And that is, the true terror in our lives isn't paranormal at all. It's human. All right, let's get right into this.
So, what is literally the scariest thing waiting in the dark? We all kind of love to fill the shadows with ghosts and demons because, strangely enough, those are comforting, right? They aren't real. But what if we replace those imaginary ghouls with something flesh and blood? Someone who breathes and watches and waits. As you're about to see, the true monsters have a heartbeat. Our whole journey today centers around this one concept: sanctuary. A sanctuary is supposed to be our safe space. But over the course of this explainer, we're going to watch that perimeter of safety shrink. We'll start out in the wide open woods, then we'll move to the front yard under the glow of a streetlight, and finally, we're going to end up right inside the very walls of a home.
Act 1. The public threat, stalked in the woods.
Picture this. You've just moved to this gorgeous, quiet, rural area. You love hiking, and you found this secluded path leading to a nature reserve, complete with hidden creeks and waterfalls. Now, on one particular Saturday, a hiker is out exploring and finds a really peaceful, swampy clearing. But despite the totally calm setting, she just feels this overwhelming sense of dread. Like every snapping twig makes her tense up. So she records a quick, few-second video diary on her phone to capture the clearing, and then she heads back to the public trails. But as our hiker exits the public restroom near the trailhead, a man in a black hoodie, sunglasses, and a purple hat walks right up to her. He says, "Hey there," acting exactly as if they're old friends. When she politely laughs and just tries to walk away, he follows her and delivers this absolutely chilling line. "Looks like we're going to hit the same trail." He then tries his completely bizarre lure, claiming his red Chevy Cruze has a stuck hood and he needs her quote-unquote small fingers to help him open it. Fortunately, she spots a passing couple, pretends to know them, and manages to safely escape as the man in the purple hat just drives off.
So, she makes it home, pours a glass of wine, and completely thinks she's safe. But then, she decides to review that short video diary she took earlier in that secluded, swampy clearing. And that's when the horrifying realization hits. Paused right there in the background of her video, standing dead still in the tree line just over her shoulder, is the man in the purple hat and black hoodie. He hadn't just bumped into her at the restrooms. He had been silently tracking her through the deep woods long before they ever spoke.
Moving on to Act 2, the threshold threat, shadows under the streetlight.
Here, the boundary of our sanctuary shrinks to the edge of our own property. A house sitter is staying at his wealthy boss's home, basically just watching this easygoing dog named Max. Being a bit of an insomniac, he's up late playing video games. But this totally quiet suburban retreat is about to be violently interrupted. Night 1 passes perfectly fine, but Night 2 brings this creeping psychological dread. At 10 p.m., while walking the dog, he thinks he spots a figure near the house. By 1 a.m., he goes out to his car and sees someone dressed in all black, just standing motionless a few houses down. And then, at 3 a.m., after hearing these really strange scratching sounds against the siding, he looks out the living room window just in time to see a person sprinting away from the glass. Now, the boss completely dismisses it as local teenagers playing pranks, but the following night proves it is much, much worse.
Later that next night, the house sitter spots a figure standing completely still under a streetlight across the street, just staring directly at the house. And this is where an absolutely critical mistake is made. The sitter steps outside the safety of the house to confront the figure. No response. He announces he's recording them to show his boss, and with literally no warning whatsoever, the silent figure breaks into a full-speed, dead sprint directly at him. The house sitter drops everything, hauls it inside, and manages to lock the door just in the nick of time. So he's sitting there, paralyzed in the dining room, trying to catch his breath. When the doorbell rings, he doesn't move. It rings again. Then, the heavy door handle aggressively jiggles as the attacker tries to force their way inside. When the lock finally holds, this incredibly calm, rational voice cuts right through the door. "Have a good night." This wasn't some prank by teenagers. It was a targeted, terrifying game of cat and mouse by a human predator.
Which brings us to our final story, Act 3, the internal threat, the stranger downstairs.
The perimeter has collapsed completely now. The sanctuary has been breached. This is the claustrophobic story of a couple, Ron and Tina, who had just bought a nice house in a safe, quiet neighborhood. The real estate agent actually disclosed that a former owner had passed away in the home, which is how they got a good deal on it. And because of this history, Ron and Tina were utterly convinced they were dealing with a ghost. They were so terrified of this supposed spirit that they literally fled to a hotel for 2 nights. But as a skeptical friend of theirs was about to discover, the truth was infinitely worse. They weren't dealing with a phantom. They were dealing with a physical, sickly old man who was secretly living right beneath their feet.
Like, you have to wonder, how did they miss him? Well, consider the ghostly evidence they compiled. They'd wake up to bumping noises at random hours. They'd come downstairs to find furniture slightly moved and items misplaced. Ron's favorite Miami Dolphins coffee mug completely vanished. And there was this persistent, nasty odor in the house, an odor that wasn't demonic sulfur, but rather human body odor. When Ron heard a crash in the cluttered basement one night and saw a shadow move, he naturally just assumed it was a poltergeist.
Enter Ron's friend, a total skeptic who volunteered to search the basement just to prove ghosts aren't real. He walks down into the messy storage area, taunting the spirits. He even pulls out his phone to record this mocking selfie video to send to Ron, showing the empty room over his shoulder. But as he adjusts the camera angle, he sees something move in the corner of his phone screen. He turns, and sitting right there behind him in the shadows is a sickly, living, breathing old man with plastic-looking eyes. The ghost was a man.
The friend drops his phone, completely panics, runs up the stairs, slams the basement door, and uses his entire body weight to hold it shut. He's screaming for Ron to call the police. And from the other side of the wood, the old man starts painfully wailing. He slams against the door, trying to force it open. Then the screaming turns into this deeply disturbing, repetitive chant, echoing through the floorboards. No, no, no. When the police finally arrive, the friend lets go of the door. The wild-eyed man bursts out, knocks the friend completely over, and sprints out the back door into the night, never to be caught.
But here is the detail that absolutely haunts me. When the police went down to secure the basement, they found exactly how this man had been surviving. Tucked away in a dark corner behind some boxes was a makeshift bed, a small pillow, a little blanket smelling intensely of body odor, and sitting right next to it, Ron's missing Miami Dolphins coffee mug. He had been comfortably living inside their sanctuary all along.
Resolution: securing your sanctuary.
Okay, so what do we actually do with all this? These stories aren't just here to scare us for the fun of it, they're here to teach us. In every single one of these encounters, understanding human behavior and maintaining strict boundaries was the literal difference between a close call and a complete tragedy. First off, trust your gut. Just like the hiker in those swampy woods, if an environment feels off, your subconscious has likely noticed a threat way before your logical brain has caught up. Second, never engage a trespasser. The house sitter's decision to yell at the person under the streetlight instantly turned a creepy surveillance situation into a full-speed chase. And finally, for sure, always lock your doors. Tina admitted she grew up in a nice neighborhood and never locked her doors, which is exactly how a strange old man simply walked right into her home and set up camp in her basement. Basic situational awareness and a locked deadbolt are your absolute final barriers against real human monsters. Which leaves us with this one final thought. How many times have you ignored a strange noise at night? How many times have you blamed the house settling, or a stray animal, or the wind, just so you could go back to sleep? The scariest realization isn't that ghosts might be real. It's the fact that sometimes, when those floorboards creak, someone is actually there. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay safe, keep your doors locked, and I'll see you next time.